Welcome back to an F1 gameplay video, and today we're on F1 2018, the brand new game by Codemasters. Now, over the next couple of days, weeks and months, I will be bringing you some F1 2018 gameplay and also just looking at the game's features, and over the next couple of days especially we'll be focusing on sort of testing the game, the top speeds of each cars, which cars like are worst versus best, tests like that, so on so on. This first test is finding out what is the fastest car in the game in terms of top end speed. So be sure to subscribe for more of these videos in the future, and in this video we're going to be using the track which I guess a lot of people would see as an easier track to find the top speed of cars, which is the Mexican Grand Prix track. Now, many may suggest that the Chinese Grand Prix track is longer, they've got a longer back straight for me to test this speed, but the problem is the inconsistency of the run out of the final corner differs so much between each of the cars. It's very tough to get a legitimate reading because, of course, kilometers an hour vary quite a bit if you get a good run or a bad run out that last corner. So the reason I use Mexico is because the run through the last corner is pretty similar through every single car. So I thought it's the best for this test. Unlike last year, I'm using kilometers an hour in this one, so that should make it a lot easier for you guys to see the small differences between the two cars, or the three cars, or the four cars that might be very close in last year's sort of comparison. So, here we go. We're going to be going with the Mercedes car first, and I'll return to this gameplay around Monza and see what happens next, whether we go three wide. So, here we go with the Mercedes-powered car here of the Mercedes. So, last year, this was one of the fastest cars in the game, of course, is the Mercedes power unit in the back. It was a pretty slippery car through the straight lines, but if I remember correctly, I think the Williams or the Force India, one of those was the quickest cars in the straight line last year. Probably neither. So down to the first corner here in Mexico. What sort of speed are we going to hit here? It's 337. So that is a great benchmark for the rest of the cars now. I'm not 100% sure whether the Mercedes or the Ferrari is the fastest outright car in the game in terms of lap time. I guess that's to be decided at each particular track, but if we go from championship standings, Mercedes is slightly ahead right now. So next up we're going to be moving on to the Ferrari. I guess you guys would see that as the most likely one to challenge the Mercedes right at the top here. So let's go on board with this. I'm still getting used to the halos in game, I'm not going to lie. The T-Cam does move slightly, meaning obviously the halo slightly moves position on the screen, but I think I'll get used to it quite quickly. So of course we're using the DRS here, hitting that DRS button as soon as we cross that line on each and every car to try and make sure we find the top end speed of each of these cars, and it's 338 that we hit on the Ferrari. It literally just hit it for a millisecond basically, and then went back down to 337, so it's very, very tight between the two outright fastest cars in the game in terms of lap time right now. 337 for the Mercedes and 338 for the Ferrari. Now, on board to the third different power united car, if that's even a word, and that is the Red Bull powered by Renault. Down this main straight once again. It's interesting to know sometimes you hit 8th gear a bit earlier in certain cars, others not so much. So hitting 8th gear and sometimes DRS at the same time is what did prove to be a bit tricky. It did happen a couple of times. So into the zone here, and it was 330 there. So it was only a brief millisecond that it hit 330, but it did just about hit 330 there at the end of the straight, the Red Bull. Now we know that the Red Bull is powered by the Renault power unit, which we expected to be a bit slower, but to be that far off, I am a little bit surprised. But I guess if you look at real life, you do realise that it is quite far off in a lot of scenarios. So now on board with the Force India, this is a car I would expect to be fast, especially this year because it doesn't seem to have as much downforce as they did last year. So you'd expect them to be up there matching the top guys in terms of outright top end speed. So into the final zones, and it's 338, and I think actually Force India was in the 338 for the longest. It seemed to be actually in 338 for a couple of seconds. It wasn't sort of a bit of a blip like it was in the Ferrari. So far it looks like Force India could be technically the fastest car in the game because it managed to get to that top speed a little bit quicker than the Ferrari. Now with the Williams, now this is a Mercedes powered car like the Force India, but with even less downforce. So what's going to happen here? So of course downforce doesn't directly correlate to top end speed, but it's mostly down to that. So down this straight here, let's see what the Williams can do. 334, 5, can't even go over 335. That's quite incredible there. So that is 3 kilometers an hour slower by the end of the straight than the Ferrari and the Force India. So that's actually quite surprising. So I would have thought this car, the Williams, would have had less downforce, the same engine. So something not obviously going quite right there for Williams in terms of top end speed this season. Maybe they just don't quite have it there this year. So I should also note that all of these cars are on standard setup, so nothing has been adjusted there. Of course, there's a slight, probably like thousandths of a second difference in terms of when I'm hitting the DRS, but it's not going to make a massive difference at the end. So Renault 333 kilometers an hour. So that compares to Red Bull's 330, so 3 kilometers an hour faster than the customer of Renault. Might be having words, all I'm saying. Probably more downforce on the Red Bull. That could be, I guess, the majority of the reason for that difference in top end speed. And normally you would take downforce over top end speed on the majority of the tracks. Now this is the one I think a lot of people might be interested about, the Toro Rosso Honda. Last year this was clearly the slowest car in the game. Now 333, it's faster than the Red Bull. Quite incredible. Faster than the Red Bull, powered by Renault, equal to the Renault factory team right now. That is quite amazing, and only 2 kilometers an hour slower than something like a Williams, which has got a Mercedes power unit in the back, which is pretty amazing stuff. Now the Haas, we've seen so far, the Ferrari powered Ferrari is one of the, or is the fastest, equal fastest so far. So what will the customer team with probably slightly less downforce do? So down this straight once again under the Pirelli banner as we hit our max speed. What's it going to be? It's 333 once again, like Renault, like Toro Rosso. So the last three have all been 333. So only 2 cars remaining now, the McLaren and last up the Sauber Alfa Romeo. So always the butt of the jokes over the last couple of years with the Honda power unit. Now the McLaren has a Renault power unit in the back of this car. Will it be faster in a straight line than the Honda powered car? You definitely hope so. It would be just a laughing shame, I guess you'd say, if this car was slower than the Honda powered car in a straight line. So it's maxing out at 327. A whole 6 kilometers an hour slower than the Toro Rosso in a straight line. So, about having the best chassis on the grid, McLaren. Anyway, now Sauber Alfa Romeo, the last car on the grid. I think, personally, going into this and the Williams were the 2 cars I was looking out for as probably going to be the quickest in a straight line. So, the Williams let me down. What can the Sauber Alfa Romeo do? Because, of course, this has a Ferrari power unit in the back of it, but is much slicker through the air because it has less downforce. So, 334. Okay, that's quite surprising. Only a nudge ahead of Renault, Toro Rosso and Haas. Of course, Renault, Toro Rosso and Haas all different power units as well, so that's interesting to note. So here we are. Here's the fastest cars test, all up on the screen right now. So equal first was Ferrari and Force India at 338. Mercedes just behind on 337. 2 kilometers back was Williams on 335. 1 kilometer back from that was Sauber. 3 teams only 1 kilometer back from Sauber, which are Renault, Toro Rosso and Haas, and Red Bull and McLaren the slowest 2 at 330 and 327 respectively. So just to understand this key, Ferrari powered cars are red, Mercedes powered cars are silvery grey, obviously yellow is Renault powered cars, and Toro Rosso is powered by Honda, so I thought I'd just leave it as the Toro Rosso colours. So Honda is the only one that's supplying Toro Rosso this year. Obviously good to see for next year that they're pretty good in a straight line. So conclusions from this. Well, I guess you'd kind of say that the Ferrari could be the best power unit now. It's very interesting, that whole debate in real life right now is the Ferrari the best power unit on the grid? I'd say it certainly looks like it. With the upgrades they've been bringing over the last couple of weeks, it definitely looks like Sauber and Haas have been having like big improvements, and I guess it's not as noticeable at the front of the grid because Ferrari and Mercedes are so close to each other, but in the midfield where, yeah, it's, I guess, even closer maybe than the Ferrari and the Ferrari and the Mercedes battle. I guess when you jump up a few like whole teams ahead of people because of the development of the engine, I guess that really shows the development of this Ferrari power unit for this year. So it is interesting, but then also at the same time, the Force India matching that Ferrari as well on 338 kilometers an hour. So as for career mode teams, I guess that's something maybe you're looking at this and wondering where you'll go. Obviously, if you want a good top-end car, you're probably going to look at the Force India. you're probably not going to want to touch the Williams. It's probably the worst car, well, it is the worst car on the grid, let's be honest. So you're probably not going to get too close to the Williams unless you're really up for a challenge. Renault, Toro Rosso and Haas all equal. Sauber just ahead of them. So they're all going to be really interesting cars to be racing in career mode. Of course, you'd expect the Red Bull to be quite slow because of the Renault power unit and the massive amount of downforce that car has. So I think that was to be expected. I don't know what to say about McLaren. It's just quite embarrassing, really, isn't it? It's kind of embarrassing that they switched over from Honda to Renault and actually slower in a straight line because, let's be honest, they haven't had a great chassis the last couple of years. They were just saying that to sort of push blame onto Honda, and I guess they can't really do much about Renault supplying these engines now because, let's be honest, over the last couple of seasons, Renault's not been great in a straight line, but definitely better than Honda. And yeah, I think it's more a car issue with the whole rest of the team than completely blaming it on the power unit guys, really, unfortunately. So I'm not sure exactly where that lack of performance between McLaren and Renault is, for example. 6 kilometers an hour difference between them. I wouldn't even say that, well, McLaren doesn't have more downforce than the Renault. It's been proven in real life, hasn't it? The Renault has more downforce than the McLaren, that's for sure. And the majority of the tracks, it looks like the faster car. So it's obviously just an inherent problem with the McLaren car, the McLaren design, because so far, whatever power unit they seem to bolt into the back of it, it's slow in a straight line. Also, for reference, I think this was my first ever race on F1 2018, so you can see I've slightly underestimated how good I am. That sounds so bad. That maybe I haven't put the AI up enough. They're on like 85% here. I should probably up that to like 90%, I think. I'm surprised that I'm battling for a podium in a Haas, let's be honest. So it wasn't the greatest of driving, but it was just some background footage just for me to talk about. So some interesting conclusions to take from this. Is Ferrari now better than Mercedes in terms of the power unit? I feel like it's a high possibility that it is now. Also, obviously, the note that McLaren is so slow, Red Bull is so slow, and Renault seem to be quite slow, really, in comparison to just all of their power units, really. So really interesting stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Please remember to leave a like on it if you did enjoy. And of course there are going to be slight discrepancies between each run. It's hard to get it exactly perfect on all of them that run through the final corner, but I tried my damn hardest to make it all pretty similar. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. As I said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys around soon for another video. It has been Axe, I'm out here. Goodbye.